Welcome to Nexus Network News, the alternative news media sentinels. Here is the news headlines. Conflict in Gaza intensifies as Trump seeks a peace plan in the Middle East. President Putin of Russia sends the West a message at the peace talks in Turkey. Peacemongers intervene in the Pakistan-India conflict, and finally the United Kingdom economy grows. The conflict in Gaza intensifies as Trump seeks a peace plan in the Middle East. President Trump arrived in the Middle East for peace talks for the Israeli-Palestinian war. He met with several Arab leaders during his visit.
If there is an image to define this trip so far, well, this is it. A surprise for sure, and such a reflection of the quirks of history. Because Ahmed al-Shara is now the Syrian president. But he was an Islamist commander, aligned to al-Qaeda, a militant who fought the Americans in Iraq, jailed by them in the notorious Abu Ghraib prison. There was no sound on the images released, and so we don't know what they said, but as an indication of what seems uncharacteristically to be Donald Trump's message here of cooperation, opportunity, looking forward, it had all that.
You have to stay down. You have to stay down. I'm working with you.
There is a tussle on this trip.
He has to stand. Down.
To decipher what the American president is up to here. Because at face value, we're getting a fresh vision of his foreign policy worldview. And it is at odds with Trump, the disruptor. The morning meeting with Gulf Arab leaders was about investment first, but under it, geopolitical cooperation. The two go side by side here.
And I think
And after the opulence and business deals of day one, it was more about the diplomacy on day two. A nuclear deal with Iran, maybe, and Israel, Gaza.
In Gaza, my administration shares the hope of so many in this region for future of safety and dignity of the Palestinian people. But that cannot happen as long as Gaza's leaders take delight in raping, torturing, and murdering innocent people. Can't have it. I greatly appreciate the constructive role that the leaders in this room have played in trying to bring the terrible conflict to an end.
That was it, though, publicly at least, on Gaza, the elephant in every gold-gilded room he went to. The farewell from the Saudi Crown Prince reflected the closeness of this relationship, the trappings of power shared. On the flight to Qatar, a few words on the meeting which defined the day.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Great. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you at all?
He's got a real shot at pulling it together.
And then jet escorts again, this time above the Persian Gulf. And from Air Force One, he arrived into Doha, into the hands of the royal family who want to give him a new plane. And he hasn't just brushed aside the conflicts of interest, he's doubled down here, insisting it is all fine. At the Emir's palace, a sword dance, camels, and Arabian horses to greet a motorcade led by Tesla Cybertrucks. Qatar hitting all the right buttons for the American president. But beyond all that, this leg of the trip is less about trade and about money and more about geopolitics, because Qatar has proved itself to be a country that's capable of doing delicate diplomatic deals in a way that few other countries can. On Gaza, Qatar has been the intermediary between the Americans and the Israelis on one side and Hamas on the other. The hostage negotiations have been driven from here. Hamas has a political office here. And Trump's chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff, he is here too. You have to wonder what progress on ceasefire talks are behind this hug. We don't know, because it was all about the decor here.
As a construction person, I'm seeing perfect marble. This is what they call perfecto.
Then a hint on another challenge and the prospect of a Zelensky-Putin meeting this week.
I know you're very much involved in helping us in other regions, like what's happening with Russia, Ukraine, etc. And I think we're having some pretty good news coming out of there today and maybe tomorrow and maybe Friday, frankly. But we'll see about that.
The evening, as it was last night, was a state dinner for the American president and his guests. Mark Stone, Sky News, in Doha.
President Putin of Russia sent the West a message by not attending the Turkey peace talks in person. Instead, he sent top ministers in his place when the West wanted Putin there himself.
Peace talks between Ukraine and Russia are happening here in Turkey. Despite Zelensky's challenge for Putin to attend, he's not on the list of Russia's delegation. And the Kremlin's now confirmed he won't be going. President Zelensky, Sky News, do you have a message for Vladimir Putin?
I think this is very clear message.
Here's everything you need to know. The ceasefire negotiations between Russia and Ukraine are reaching a critical point. President Zelensky has arrived here in Ankara to meet President Erdogan. But Zelensky is hoping the empty chair will expose the Kremlin's rhetoric of peace as hollow and without meaning. But the situation remains fluid. European leaders are increasingly frustrated with what appear to be delaying tactics. Before Moscow called for direct talks, they demanded an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. The Istanbul talks are then an inflection point and could be a pivotal moment in ending Europe's bloodiest war since the 1940s.
The Ukrainians believe they have called Vladimir Putin's bluff with the suggestion of face-to-face meetings between him and Zelensky in Istanbul. Now, that was made after President Putin suggested direct talks at an official level, swerving allies' calls for a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. The question is, what do the Ukrainians do now the Kremlin has confirmed that Putin won't be going? Donald Trump says he wants to see the Russians and the Ukrainians doing something, to use his words. So if they don't send a team to meet the team of negotiators sent by Putin in his stead, they may fall out of favour with the American president yet again. If they do send negotiators to meet Putin's team of second-tier diplomats and spies, they could get the blame for any lack of progress in negotiations anyway, because at every stage in this diplomacy, Donald Trump gives the Russians the benefit of the doubt.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together, okay? And obviously he wasn't going to go. He was going to go, but he thought I was going to go. He wasn't going if I wasn't there. And I don't believe anything's going to happen, whether you like it or not, until he and I get together. But we're going to have to get it solved because too many people are dying.
The Russian delegation is a group of technocrats. There's a Kremlin aide, there's a diplomat, a deputy defense minister and a spy who's the head of Russia's military intelligence unit, the GRU. They are an experienced team, but they're not Russia's top team. There's no foreign minister, there's no negotiating heavyweight, and there's no Vladimir Putin. And to me, that's a sign of disrespect to Ukraine, a way of trying to irritate Volodymyr Zelensky, humiliate him perhaps, because he wanted to meet leader to leader, but no, Moscow is sending a more junior contingent. I think the makeup of the team also gives us a clue as to the direction Moscow wants these talks to take, because two on the list were there the last time the two sides met in Istanbul 3 years ago, when the two sides reached a draft settlement deal before the talks broke down. And they are Vladimir Medinsky, the Kremlin aide, and Alexander Fomin, the deputy defense minister. That's significant because I think it shows that Russia sees these talks as a continuation of the last talks, and it shows that Moscow wants to pick up where it left off with this draft settlement. Now, that draft deal reportedly had Ukraine prepared to agree to permanent neutrality. The trouble now is that that is a non-starter for Ukraine. It's a red line they're not willing to cross, given everything that's happened in the last 3 years, all the lives that have been lost. So if that's the starting point for these talks, it doesn't bode well for any breakthrough.
People in Pakistan-administered Kashmir react to Indian strikes on region. Hundreds lead a protest march in support of the Pakistani military. Men and many children were amongst the protesters.
It is a place of wonder that can easily slip into a cradle of despair. A disputed borderland of beauty and trauma that's only just stepped back from the brink of war.
We're about to enter Kashmir, at the centre of decades of conflict between India and Pakistan, and at the very heart of recent escalating tensions between the two nuclear neighbours.
We're headed to Muzaffarabad in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. We're with the Pakistan Army, visiting a city where few expected India to strike. But it did, wiping out Bilal Mosque, killing 3 people, including Jamil's 82-year-old father, Muhammad.
Do you want revenge against India?
हम मुसलमान हैं और We are Muslims. My father was martyred in this attack. That's honor for us. Revenge against India, that's the duty of our armed forces and government. And we have full faith in them.
India has full faith it hit a terror target. Kursid is the imam here.
The Indian government alleged that this is a terror base. What do you say to that?
This is an allegation from their side. I have been here for 17 years and everybody knows me. I am the leader of this mosque. You can see I am a normal person. I am not a terrorist.
Nimra was sleeping when the missiles came. She was hit in the chest with shrapnel.
What's the future of this conflict? What do you want to see happen with Kashmir?
I think India needs to stop the war. Children like me who were attacked, our education was disturbed. I want to say to India, whatever your issues, we need to sit down and resolve it. Pakistan wants peace and I want Pakistan to talk on the Kashmir issue.
Next door, the local school was also damaged. Thankfully, the children were at home, sleeping. But now they can see just how close danger can be.
How do you feel about your school being damaged?
Our school is destroyed. I have so much anger because we study here. Our principal built this school. They built it for us, but India destroyed it.
You can really feel the huge gulf here. Pakistanis are angry, but they're hopeful too. Yet across the mountains, Indians sound defiant, yet frustrated. And part of that frustration is that Donald Trump has made Kashmir an issue again, just when India's leader believes this moment should all be about terrorism.
Both sides want to frame the narrative, but there's strongmen, religious nationalism, and modern warfare in the mix. And now, a very fragile truce.
We are making the right choices now, says Chancellor as the United Kingdom shows signs of growth, but some sectors show a complete collapse in public spending and trust.
Great. Chancellor, thank you for talking to us. We've just had the GDP numbers out, so pretty punchy numbers. Can we expect more of the same in the coming months?
Today's numbers are incredibly welcome. 0.7% growth in just the first 3 months of this year. It's set to be the fastest growing economy in the G7, and you can see growth really across the piece. Growth in services, growth in manufacturing, growth in business investment, exports, and also in household spending. I think that reflects some of the choices we've made as a government. Bring stability back to the economy, which has enabled the Bank of England to cut interest rates 4 times now, increase the minimum wage, putting more money in the pockets of working people, and securing 2 significant trade deals just last week that protects thousands of jobs but can also help create thousands more.
What part of it reflects the choices that you've made as a government?
I think crucially bringing stability back to the economy. That stability gives businesses the confidence to invest and has also given the Bank of England the confidence to be able to reduce interest rates after all the hikes in interest rates that we saw in the last Parliament. And stability is the precondition really for a growing economy.
So it follows from that, does it, that you're expecting strong growth in the following quarters as well, because that stability is not going away, right?
Well, there's clearly economic headwinds and the world is changing. We can see that all around us. But we are a strong economy. I do believe that we can seize the opportunities. The fact that we were the first country to secure a trade agreement with the United States is significant. And these numbers today are very welcome.
Okay, so the fact that the Bank of England thinks that it's going back to 0.1% in the coming quarters, do you think that should be ignored, should it?
Look, the numbers today are important. They show an economy that is growing across the board.
I'm just talking about future quarters.
Yes, and look, these numbers have surprised many people on the upside today, and they reflect the fact
They surprise you as well.
Well, we could follow the numbers very, very closely. We talk to businesses and we can see that there's a lot of investment going in at the moment, and we'll be setting out in the spending review this government's spending plans, including on infrastructure, on energy projects, on transport, on housing in the spending review. But we are determined to work with business to seize the opportunities that are out there, and also to go around the world doing deals to help great British companies export around the world.
Talking about deals, obviously we're here at Rolls-Royce. I'm guessing that's not a coincidence. I mean, what is the tariff rate that these engines are going to be facing under the trade deal or the agreement that we've now hatched with America?
Well, you heard what Howard Lutnick, the US Commerce Secretary, said in the Oval Office with President Trump, that engines from Rolls-Royce would face zero tariffs.
Do we have that in black and white yet?
Obviously, we're working through the detail and the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but the US Commerce Secretary himself said Rolls-Royce 0% on 0% tariffs on engines, and that's been welcomed by Rolls-Royce. And those deals that we're securing with countries around the world are good not just for aerospace, but also for our steel industry, good for our car manufacturers, including Jaguar Land Rover, and the deal with India, very good, but particularly for Scotch whisky producers. So a number of sectors that, because of the deals that we were able to secure last week, we've seen jobs protected and jobs will be created.
It's striking though, isn't it, that so you're referring to what Howard Lutnick said in the Oval Office rather than a kind of document, and that's partly, I guess, because the document isn't there yet, and partly because you're watching like the rest of us to see what Donald Trump and his cabinet say on any given occasion.
Well, we've secured a trade agreement with the United States. We were the first country in the world to do that. Of course, there's
an
work
agreement
to do.
To do the legal work on an agreement.
Well, of course, there's work to do on formalising that. But you saw the response of Jaguar Land Rover last week because of that reduction in tariffs, and it is very welcome that Rolls-Royce will face 0% tariffs on its engines.
Is there a kind of concern that, so it's good for Rolls-Royce, it's good for Jaguar Land Rover, is there a concern that for other companies which aren't able to do the lobbying, that they kind of get left behind in these deals?
Well, look about the supply chains. I mean, how many smaller businesses are reliant on Jaguar Land Rover, on British Steel, on Rolls-Royce and other companies? The local economy here depends on a successful Rolls-Royce in the same way that the West Midlands depends on a successful car manufacturing sector, and that's true in Merseyside and other parts of the country as well. So look, we've secured these strong numbers, we've secured these trade deals, but most significantly, we have been able to bring stability back to the UK economy, pushing down the cost of mortgages and the cost of borrowing for businesses and families across our country.
Just final thing though, obviously we've got this agreement. Even if that goes as planned, we're still looking at higher tariffs with our trade with the US than we were only kind of 6-9 months ago. I mean, that's true, isn't it? We're in a different world now where it's tougher to do trade.
The world has changed, and we can see that all around us, and there are global headwinds, but I believe that we're in a position, because of the deals that we have secured, to seize the opportunities, whether that is the deal with the US or indeed the deal with India. And of course on Monday it will be the UK-EU summit, so we want to be a country that offers stability, fiscal, financial and economic stability, but also a country that is seen to be open for business, trade and investment from countries around the world, and that is what those trade deals signify.
Okay, Chancellor, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, over in the United States, Ben & Jerry's co-founder and 6 others were arrested at RFK hearing. The protesters were forced out of the chamber and arrested and will appear in court in due time.
While the committee conducts its business, Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room.
Presenting today supports these goals and reflects.
The witness will suspend. The committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. That was a made for C-SPAN moment. The Secretary will resume.
With the wars in Gaza, Kashmir, and the Ukraine raging on this earth, the people of the West must realize that the wars could escalate into World War III. Only a sleeping populace can't see the warning signs in the mainstream British media about winning a nuclear war with Russia and the West provoking the Russians into attacking the West. Does this stem from the West's deep desire to depopulate the world? And with the war with Russia, and now the conflict in Kashmir, does that mean that the British establishment are having a field day planning the extinction of the UK, or are the peacemongers going to win the day? Putin must make a real effort to make a peace deal with the Ukrainians, as much as Israel has to be forced to stop bombing civilian areas and buildings and enter a real peace process with the Palestinians, which results in an independent state of Palestine.